Hey y'all, it's Siobhan Muir. Welcome back to Cooking with Siobhan. So today we're starting the month of casseroles. Why? Because we can. Also because it's a busy month with tax day coming and everybody's, still in school and all the stuff that's going on. So casseroles is a really easy way to have a meal ready to go. You put it together and it's ready to go. So today what we're doing is we're making a dish called Rakott Krumpli, which is a Hungarian dish that translates to stacked potatoes. And what it is basically a layer of potatoes, a layer of egg, a layer of sausage, a layer of potato. It's a stack of a bunch of, actually 3 ingredients. You got sausage, eggs, and potatoes. And then you put a sauce on top of it, and then you serve it to people, and you only need to eat about this much. Trust me, it's kind of like a heart attack on a plate. But it's a really nice way of filling up your belly when you're really hungry and you don't have to eat a lot. And once you make it, it keeps for a few days, in particular in the fridge. You can freeze it. I don't like it when it comes out. You have to thaw it. He says it's okay. I don't like it. But the point is, there is a way to save it for longer than just a couple days. I will say this, it makes a lot of food. So you're gonna wanna do this for something like a party or a big family gathering or something, because otherwise you're just gonna be like, okay, we're still eating this for, a week. Everybody take 2 pieces.
And in this recipe, there is no way to cut this in half, unfortunately. This is a old farm dish that my mom grew up on. So it's a lot of food.
Okay, so what are you going to need? You are going to need 18 eggs. You're going to need a 5-pound bag of potatoes. And yes, you will probably use 3 or 5?
I generally do the whole 5 because the big thing is you have 2 layers of potatoes that will go in a 9x13 pan, easy. You want to make sure you have enough. Any extra, you can always turn into mashed potatoes, potato salad, whatever. But believe me, you're going to use probably 4.5 pounds of this, easy.
So you'll need a 5-pound bag of potatoes.
And you're going to want to cut out any of the blemishes and so on when it's done.
Okay, the other thing you're going to need is you're going to have to peel these things and chop them up into itty bitty pieces. And then this thing is frozen right now. We're gonna leave it frozen because it's a lot easier to cut into discs when it's frozen than it is when it's actually thawed. Now, if you happen to have it already thawed, don't worry about it. That's fine too. It's just we've found it's easier to cut when it's frozen. All right, and it's his recipe, so I'm gonna let him do most of the talking. But I wanted you to know what you're gonna need. You're going to need 18 eggs, a 5-pound bag of potatoes, which you'll use most of, and at least 1 link of sausage. And we use turkey sausage because we like it better. But you can use kielbasa, you can use beef sausage, you can use any of it.
I've used them all. But turkey is actually quite nice. It actually gives a nice lighter flavor to it. And I think it helps pop out the taste of the potatoes. But that's me personally. If you don't like turkey, go with a kielbasa, go with beef, go with whatever. The one thing Siobhan didn't talk about is the sauce. The sauce will come last.
It's coming later, so I want you to worry about this first.
But you will need, the other part is butter and sour cream. And no, you will not need a tub of sour cream this size. So, we'll save you that part of the cardiac. With that, so first things first, you're going to put the potatoes in a stock pot. And then you're going to put the eggs on top of it. Fill this with water until it covers at least 1 inch of water above the eggs. If not, if you can manage about 2, you're better off. Once the potatoes and the eggs go in the pot, you put it on the stove, put a little bit of salt in it, and then you're going to start boiling it.
Whole.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have to cut anything up. That's kind of the neat thing about this recipe is you throw it all in the pot whole and then you boil it. That does mean that it takes about 45 minutes at least to an hour and 15 minutes to boil because you're going to hard boil the eggs and you're going to cook the potatoes all together.
Right. And the biggest challenge is this is a time-consuming dish.
Yeah.
From start to finish, I think the fastest I've ever done this is about 2.5 hours. So be prepared to wait a lot.
So you kind of want to prep it. Matter of fact, what you can do, we have found, is you boil the eggs and potatoes, you put it all together with the sausage, and you put it in the fridge, and you do the sauce the next day, and do the baking the next day, and it's fresh and good to go, and you don't have to do all the other 2 hours worth of work.
Right. So this does, if you prep it and cook it later, it's fine. It's a lot easier. It's a lot quicker. But still,
you have to still do the work.
Time.
Yeah.
And you cook everything whole, because what you want to do is, as the potatoes boil, they're going to infuse some of the flavor of the potato into the egg. And so with that, you're going to it's going to need to boil. And you want to have the potatoes soft enough that they will fully slice evenly, or as close to evenly as possible. And then you go from there. And I'm just trying to evenly space out the potatoes so I can have enough room for the eggs on top. So as soon as I finish prepping the potatoes and eggs, I will show you all on the camera roughly how it looks.
The other thing is, if you do end up with extra potatoes and extra eggs, hey, you have hard-boiled eggs to eat as a snack, and you have potatoes you can put a little butter and parsley and garlic on, and then you've got cooked potatoes.
So I'll move my hand down so I don't break any of the eggs, but you've got the eggs sitting on top of the potatoes, so we're going to fill this with water, and we're going to just start boiling it. And the time starts when the water boils. And then you just sit and wait.
So it takes what, 5 or 6 minutes to get it to boiling, and then you count your 45 to 50 minutes of maybe it'll boil soon. It is a time. The prep time is what's consuming. The rest of it, I think. How long does it bake?
It bakes for about 45 minutes.
So the prep time is what takes the longest, because you have to boil the eggs and the potatoes, then you have to peel the potatoes and slice them up, and then you have to stack them and slice the eggs, and you have to stack them, and then you have to do the pasta or the meat. And so preparing it takes a long time. Once you throw it in the oven, it's not that long at all.
And I use probably about the equivalent of a quarter to a half teaspoon of salt. You don't need a lot, because all you just need it to do is just add a little extra boil. Crank that thing to high, and then you just sit and wait. So I guess we will come back when this is finished boiling, because there's really no need to watch a pot of boiling water.
Yeah, watch pot never boils anyway.
So, but the only other thing that is a good time or use of your time at this point is cutting up the sausage. So I'll do that right now, and then we'll come back when it's all done. So I'll cut up the sausage, and so I usually try and slice these about 1/4 inch in diameter, just because one link will then give me the entire pan. And it's the reason why I choose to cut everything or cut the sausage when it's frozen or partially frozen, because at least I can get a consistent cut throughout. But with how many times I've both burned and frozen my hands, I probably have lost a lot of that nerve sensation. It's the reason why I now use a mini oven bag. And it's not going to be perfect. Some slices will be thicker, some will be smaller. But once it's done, I'll let it sit in the bowl until the potatoes are done. And then by then it should thaw out quite nicely. And then we don't have to worry about any excess water coming in. But the reason why you're going to cook this in the oven is because of the sausage. The sausage is really not cooked. I mean, yes, it's already been sort of pre-cooked, but you want it to be cooked. So that's part of the reason for when we go and put it in the oven.
It just stopped boiling, as you can tell by my stove, which is a mess. However, It took us about 51 minutes to totally heat up and boil, and what you're going to see now is basically a container full of potatoes and eggs.
Yep.
Are you gonna do it over here?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it all over there. I'm just gonna rinse all this stuff off.
Okay, he's gonna rinse it in cool water, so a little bit. Granted, it's easier to peel the potatoes when they're hot. I don't touch hot potatoes, but it is easier because you'll just scrape it, and then it literally, you're kind of blanched the potatoes at this point, and so their skin comes easily off. That also means it's really, really hot.
Potatoes are done, eggs are done, everything's nice and hot and steamy. And so what we're gonna end up doing is sort of like what we did on the potato salad recipe a while back. You're gonna have to peel these when they're still really, really hot. So it's gonna get very hot very quickly.
Do you want a bowl of also ice water?
Yeah, let's grab that big glass bowl of ice water. So while Siobhan gets that bowl of ice water going, so I'm gonna talk about what we need to do. First off, so we're gonna put a layer of potatoes, we're gonna put some salt on it. After that, we're gonna cut the eggs, layer them with salt on those. We're gonna add a layer of sausage with no salt. So salt on layer 1, salt on layer 2, no salt on layer 3, no salt on layer 4. So, oh joy. And so use a flat bladed knife. Sometimes you have to peel or stab the potato, and you're going to want to peel the skin. And yes, this is basically a boiling hot potato, so 212 degrees is boiling. That's what you're holding on to, so it does get hot very, very quickly.
But they are fully cooked.
They are fully cooked. But as you can see, there's a blemish on this piece of potato, so you're going to cut it off and just get rid of it, and so forth. So once the potato has been peeled, you're just going to cut slices and layer them. And you can stack them or imbricate them so that they overlap. You want to have as much of an overlap as possible. And you're going to try and cut it as thin as you can where it holds together. And if it does, like this one, break apart, don't worry about it. If it breaks apart, then you know that the core of the potato is fully cooked. The last thing you want is a
Crunchy
not enough.
potato.
Yeah, if it's not enough cooked, you're going to see that it's not going to be a consistent color through. And so from the outside to the inside, it's all one continuous sort of like near translucent sheen. So you know that your potato is cooked. Hence why you're going to cook for at least 45 minutes to up to an hour. I prefer using red potatoes for this dish because the potatoes generally hold up better. Plus also they're creamy, and when you have any leftovers, I mean, you can just turn it straight into mashed potatoes. Thank you. And so on. Whereas if you use russets are fine. You can do it. The biggest thing is whatever you don't peel, you're gonna have to use pretty quickly as some sort of baked potato. Might be a great way to make baked potatoes. I've never tried it.
Yeah.
But with that, you're gonna have to use those potatoes pretty quickly. You can go and use Yukon Gold. I've done that one as well. They're good. Be real careful on the cooking time on that one because they generally will cook faster. But I have also noticed that while the outside may cook, the inside may not cook as evenly. So be prepared. You might have a couple of areas where it's not nearly as cooked. Now, is that a big issue? Not a whole lot, because at the end of the day, you still have to bake this. And the baking will help cook some of that potato and soften it, but it may not. So if you have a big chunk of potato that's not cooked, it may not entirely soften up by the time it's done. So we're getting close to being done. So once you get a layer down, and if it crumbles and breaks apart, it's okay. The potatoes are cooked, and so sometimes they just break. And what you're going to look for is you want to fill any open space. So if you've got a lot of pan showing through the bottom, you just want to keep using a potato until you sort of like patch up those spots. When it's all said and done, your first layer should look something like this, and then you're going to want to salt it.
Right, because you will need the rest of the potatoes. Don't worry that we didn't just make an entire bag of potatoes and just for kicks and grins. You will need the rest of it. So this is a nifty, cool little tool. You can find it at Walmart. You can find it at Target. You can find it at any kitchen store. You know, it's an egg slicer. And basically what we're going to do is peel our hard-boiled eggs, and then we're going to slice them once. You don't want to slice them, crossways. Just slice them widthwise. And that's where you're going to get a layer of egg over the top of the potatoes.
And so slice once. This part goes faster because the eggs have chilled enough that all you're doing again is like the previous, just layering. And these generally don't break as readily as the potatoes do. Do you have to cook this all at once and eat it right when you make it? Well, you don't have to. If you want to make this and prepare it for, something on the weekend, go ahead, you can freeze it. Two options. You can freeze it with the sauce on top, and it's okay. It'll keep for a little bit, maybe for about a week. The big thing you're going to be concerned about is the sauce will separate if it's in the freezer for too long. So with that, that one just did not want to cut.
Wow.
Okay, this is going to be interesting. And the other way, the better way, and it'll keep for a lot longer, is to do it once you get the final layer of potatoes on, wrap it, then put it in the freezer, and it'll stay for a couple weeks, easy. And then when you're ready, you just take it out, let it fully thaw, then you'll make the sauce, which is the next step. So again, once you make your layer of potatoes, you're going to end up putting another layer of salt on.
These are not potatoes.
These
are
eggs. Thank you. Like with the previous round with the potatoes, you're just going to look for patching some holes. At the end of the day, it'll look sort of like that without...
It's supposed to look a little more even, but if the eggs don't cooperate, they don't cooperate. It's going to taste fine.
And like the previous layer, you do want to have a decent amount of salt on it. It'll help maintain some of the moisture in the area or on the layer. So last layer, you just add the sausage. By now, the sausage would have thawed a little bit, and so it's not as cold as when you cut it. And if you like more meat, you can always cut up another link of sausage and just stack it however you wish. And
because you're going to do it again with the...
Yep, the last layer of potatoes.
Nice. So we will have extra eggs. It looks like we have four extra eggs. So out of the 18, we did 14.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't know until you do it. That's the only trick. I can't say, well, you only have to cook 14.
And unfortunately, this dish is ingredient heavy. And if you, let's say, boil only 12 eggs and you're short, you can't go back and boil another couple because you want it to have it flavored with the potatoes. And that is the key, is the eggs will have a flavor of the potatoes. And what ends up happening, the eggs are not white yolked anymore. So they will have sort of a, what would you call it, like a tan?
You mean white shells?
No, even the yolk is not nearly as white as you would, let's say, if you were to make a hard-boiled or a soft-boiled egg. It will have a little bit of the color of the potato, and I wonder if that's when it absorbs some of the nutrients of the potatoes. But don't know. Would you like more meat?
I think this is good. So yeah, I think we should do you want to do another one?
Sure, let's do another link. So we'll be right back, and we're going to cut up a link, and then we'll finish it off. After realizing I ran out of sausage, I cut a little extra. Again, it really comes down to sometimes you have enough, sometimes you don't, so it's okay. One word of warning, since this is still partially frozen and not thawing like the other one had for well over an hour, you will add a little extra water to it. Don't worry too much. Just be prepared. Part of it might be a little more runny, and that's going to be more on when it gets to the sauce side of things. So, last layer of sausage. So you've now got a layer of sausage on top of your initial layer of potatoes, then your eggs, both of which have a little bit of salt on it. Here's your layer of meat, no salt, not one bit.
You don't need it.
So we will go and start working on the last layer of the potatoes, and this by now, because it takes, how long would you say I've been working on this, Siobhan? Probably about 40 minutes at this point? Or 25,
yeah, every
30?
bit of that. Yeah, about half an hour at least.
So now that we're at this stage, the potatoes are still going to be hot, but they're actually, let me restate.
Really warm.
My hands have been burned enough with doing this dish that, to me, it's actually manageable. To others, it might take a little extra getting used to, so remember, always keep your thing of cold water near you. All right, so we're down to the last potato. In total, I have about 3 potatoes left that I haven't used, so, again, it's hard to judge 5 pounds or a little less or whatnot. It's gonna really come down to the potatoes. Like everything, you're not gonna know until you put it together. So I've already finished the layering off. Now I'm just patching holes and so on so that it's full and filled. And if you were to be at this stage and you want to freeze it, go for it. Put some saran wrap or tin foil, seal it down pretty good. It can go in the freezer for, a couple weeks at the most. Will there be freezer burn or anything like that set in? Like anything in the freezer, if you put it in for too long, yeah, it can just get to that point. And like I said, by the end, even the skin will continue to peel. Just note that the potatoes might get a little on the gummy side because of the starch. When it was hot, you didn't have a lot of the starch just sit and get, time to set. Well, now that it's cool, then again, we're about 45 minutes to an hour into this prep phase. It has had a chance to do that. So, once I finish filling the holes, again, the last thing you're going to do is you're not putting any salt. So no salt on this layer. So salt on layer 1, salt on layer 2, no salt on layers 3 and 4. And that's going to be because of the sauce. So you're going to have a pretty rich and creamy sauce that's on top of it. It's down to really 4 ingredients. You're going to have, for this, I use 2 sticks of butter. Yeah, just because, we already don't have enough calories in the pan. Let's just add some more.
Because we're American, we get them in sticks, but this is a cup of butter. So that you will know that. So if you're not from the US, you're probably going to use about a cup of butter. We get them in sticks. Most people around the world do not. So you'll need a cup of butter.
Okay, thank you, Siobhan.
I learned that the hard way. Some of my readers said, thank you for saying how much it actually is, because we don't get sticks in our country. Okay, you'll need a cup of butter.
You're gonna need a cup of butter. And on top of that, you're gonna need, now you're not gonna need a tub of sour cream of this size, but you are gonna need about 18 to 24 ounces. It really depends on how creamy you want that top layer to be. I usually settle somewhere around that 20 ounce amount. So if you bought a 24 ounce container, by all means, you can use it. So we're gonna put the pan on the stove and we're gonna heat it up on medium. And then we're gonna start with the butter, melt that completely, and then I'm gonna put in approximately 20 ounces of sour cream out of this. Since this is
Is that a new one?
no, this is the old one.
Okay.
It should be the old one.
Oh, and that's about what it's got left, isn't it?
It's a little over. So this is a 3-pound container. So I will probably be, what, 24 ounces is what, 2 pounds?
No, but 1.5.
1.5. So if you got a piece this large or a thing of sour cream this large, you're gonna use about half. And while that's going, we're gonna set the oven for, normally you can bake this on 375, but being in Cheyenne and at well over 6,000 feet, I'm gonna add 10 minutes or 10 degrees to it. So I'm gonna cook it at 385, but you can get away with it at 375. Perfect, thank you, gorgeous. And recommendation, you're gonna cook this on a cookie sheet of one kind or another, because it will overflow.
Oh
Wash my
yeah,
hands again.
it'll because this pan is going to be full. There is a likelihood that it will overflow and then coat the bottom of your oven. And rather than do that, just have basically a catch-all.
All right, so Siobhan's having an accident with a Bundaberg. So butter's almost melted. We just want to wait for it to completely melt, at which point we're going to add in sour cream and blend it together. Butter is pretty much all melted. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the sour cream and just to make it a little richer, I'm just going to use the last of this. So this is about 24 ounces of sour cream. Add it in.
I mean, because if you only use, you only be leaving a little bit.
Yeah, let's not be like our daughter who leaves like everything but like the sides left. We'll use the whole thing. All right.
She does do that, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. Use the whisk to blend it in. And as you can see, the big thing you don't want is to have the sour cream and the butter separate. You want it to be all together, because what's going to end up happening is the butter will add, I mean, if you want to consider it like a layer of grease or whatnot, it'll allow it to flow, because you're going to want to coat the top of the sauce or the top of the casserole. So, all right, this is getting pretty close. I'll let that sit. So you need to add a little bit of salt, not a lot. So maybe 2 twists of the salt shaker. But you're going to add pepper. The pepper is for both seasoning, but also color. So, and you can put in as much or as little as you'd like. Don't worry, I'm just going to put a lot in for the moment, because then you're going to stir it around. And then it's going to just spread out and give the sauce a little bit of color. We'll let this heat up just a little bit so that it's nice and fluid, no pun intended. Sauce is pretty good, so we're now going to transfer it to the pan. So just pour a bit, and you're going to want to spread it out so that it coats, because what's going to end up happening is if you don't have enough sauce, the one thing you got to worry about is your potatoes will all dry out and get really hard and crispy. So that's part of, again, how much do you use? It's really hard to say, oh, this is an exact measurement, because you want to have enough sauce that it will cover everything and allow it to have a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it tempering or protection from drying out. Because at the end of the day, this will get cooked. It may not brown completely. That is it. We will now cover it with a little bit of tin foil. It doesn't have to be really tight. It just needs to cover it. And that's it. You throw this in the oven for 45 minutes, and then when it comes out, you want to see if it's more or less pretty cooked. You might want to take the tin foil off, put it in for a couple minutes so that the sour cream sauce browns a bit. But after that, it's all done. Everything is done. We cooked it for 45 minutes, and I also put it in for another 5 to start letting it brown a little bit and dry out. And it is done. And so you'll want to let it sit for a few minutes before you cut into it, because again, as the potatoes were hot after boiling it at 212 degrees, this is now at 385. So yeah, this is it. It's more or less done. We will.
You see the steam rising up.
Oh yeah. Yep, we will. So we will cut into it in a couple minutes after it cools a little bit, and then we can show you what the casserole will look.
We'll cut into it and we'll serve it.
All right, so we let it cool for about 5 minutes, and everyone in the household is going, when are we eating? We're waiting. So I'm gonna cut into it. Now, when you pull it out, it's not gonna be like a great solid chunk. It will, 9 times out of 10, it's going to just collapse, which is just fine. It's gonna be fine no matter what.
Ta-da!
And so you'll have a little bit of liquid in the bottom. It's okay, because eventually it will cool and thicken. So,
Ooh, that does taste good.
so here is Rakott Krumpli, or Hungarian stacked potatoes. And
It smells really good. And it's you'd eat this with a side dish, but you're not gonna need much more than this. There's a lot of food here, and it's very, very filling. But it's really good.
yeah, you might add a salad to it just to complement all the carbs, but other than that, that's it. So it does take time from start to finish. We're looking at probably about 3.5 hours to record this video, so it is a time-consuming process.
And mostly it's waiting. It's waiting for things to boil. And you have to do all the prep. And then you wait for it to bake. And then you wait for it to cool. So there's a lot of waiting. But it's worth it. And again, you can get the base of it ready to go, leave it in the fridge, and then cook it the next day. And that's when you add the sauce on top.
And if you want to have it for a party sometime down the road and you have time to make it, it can freeze pretty well. You just need to throw on the sauce at the end and just bake it for the 45 minutes. And then if you wish to brown a little bit, brown it, and that's it.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. And definitely ring the bell to find out when new videos come. Like and comment on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think. Also, I happen to have a Patreon. And Patreon is a great way to support an author, because all you have to do is you pay a little fee for a month and you get all sorts of goodies. The lowest fee I have is $1 just to show your appreciation, but there's more fun things the higher you go. Check out my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Siobhan Muir, and sign up for the tier that feels good to you. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Happy making, happy baking, happy eating, and happy reading. Bye!
Bye.